Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. We know that Rage Against Capitalism is having a moment. From fresh-faced Gen Z workers to battle-hardened boomers, Americans overwhelmingly believe our economic system needs a massive overhaul. According to a recent Harris poll data, 62% of Americans believe capitalism isn't working for younger generations, and worse, is purposely designed to keep people on the bottom. That's why I am thrilled to be joined by Ron Levin, who is the author of a new book, Higher Purpose Venture Capital, which is also the title of his blog, he is the subject matter expert on this area. He's currently a managing partner with Alumni Ventures, the most active VC firm in the U.S. He's been an angel investor and an advisor to over a dozen startups, was the co-founder and CEO of TravelPerk, has been a McKinsey consultant with degrees from Babson College and Harvard Business School. Ron, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Shalom. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So your book, it profiles 50 venture-backed startups that are solving the world's biggest problems. What inspired you to write this book?
So I got into venture investing after having been on the other side of the table as an entrepreneur. And about 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to join Alumni Ventures. We're a very active venture investor, as you mentioned, the most active in the country, in fact. So I've had a lot of opportunities to invest in many early stage companies. And about a year or two into it, I really discovered in myself that I had a special passion for some of the companies that were really out there solving problems for those who are perhaps less fortunate or at the bottom of the pyramid, so to say, folks who maybe have not had the benefit of great education or family upbringing or having much wealth. But there are incredible companies out there that are solving problems around education, around healthcare, around housing, food security, and other areas to help really uplift humanity. And I wanted to tell those stories, really not just to inspire other entrepreneurs, but also to inspire investors. Many of us who are in venture capital or who are fortunate enough to be angel investors come from a place where we may not have experienced some of the problems that are faced by masses of humanity. So I wanted to amplify those stories. I started blogging. And after some time, I decided I would compile some of my writing and put it into a book called Higher Purpose Venture Capital that allows me to share the stories and hopefully show the kinds of innovative business ventures that entrepreneurs are starting and professional investors are backing that hopefully will one day solve some of the world's biggest problems.
Absolutely. So the book, again, Higher Purpose Venture Capital, really makes the case for socially responsible capitalism, which is just incredible. So the question that no doubt all of our listeners are asking is social impact compatible with the return on investment? Can we get to a true win-win?
So, I think with big problems come big opportunities. And so, indeed, these are not charities or nonprofits. These are for-profit scalable ventures being backed by VC investors who have limited partners that are seeking returns on their investment. But because there are so many problems in the world, why not solve, large problems for humanity? I would argue, a biotech startup that's trying to cure cancer is trying to do something for society. And biotech companies have obviously been, a recipient of gazillions of dollars in funding, both in private and public markets. I mean, that's just one simple example. But if I'm, pressed for an answer by some folks, I kind of turn it on them and say, is there any problem that you feel is more important than maximizing your return? If not, go ahead and just invest in tobacco companies. But I would say there are almost an unlimited number of entrepreneurs with great ideas, with for-profit business models that have the potential to achieve results. We've seen from surveys from organizations like the Global Impact Investing Network that have shown that investors that want to do well by their investments are actually very satisfied with both the financial returns and the impact that they're achieving. So indeed, they're not only compatible, I think it's imperative that investors look at opportunities for their portfolio that maximize social return as well as financial return.
Absolutely. So why would you say that investors that may be tuning into this program, why should they read this book, Higher Purpose Venture Capital? What will they get out of it?
I want investors to be exposed to the breadth of problems that entrepreneurs are solving. So I break the book into different chapters that run the gamut from health and wellness to food and housing, security, and democratizing access to capital and credit, to serving populations like migrant workers and people with disabilities. There's such a wide breadth of problems that can be solved, and so many entrepreneurs who've generally had a lived experience that led them to try and solve a big problem, and show that there are highly scalable, technology-driven solutions that are backed today by actual reputable venture capitalists. And so I always cite which investors are backing these companies. And this is 50, but this is 50 out of what could be hundreds or thousands of examples that I could be using. And so it's really just a reminder that there are big problems that can be solved and are being backed today by VC investors.
Absolutely. And we're going to cut to break in a minute and continue our conversation with the author of a new book, Higher Purpose Venture Capital. That's Ron Levin. But Ron, briefly, before we go to break, who is the audience for this book?
Yeah, so I'm targeting, obviously I want to inspire investors to back socially responsible, double bottom line ventures that are highly scalable. I want to show entrepreneurs and students, potentially future entrepreneurs, that there are many great examples and people that they could go to for advice and to follow, their progress. And then lastly, folks just interested in social justice, social impact. Nonprofit and NGOs serve a purpose, governments serve a purpose, but I believe for-profit ventures serve a purpose too. I'm a strong believer that capitalism can and should be used as a tool for good, and I hope to amplify some of these stories through this book.
It's a powerful message, and we're going to continue the conversation when we return in just a moment. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. Again, chatting with Ron Levin, who is a socially conscious venture capitalist, entrepreneur, and amplifier of inspiring double bottom line enterprises. He writes on his blog, the Higher Purpose Venture Capital blog. New book, Higher Purpose Venture Capital, came out in August, profiling 50 venture-backed startups that are solving the world's biggest problems. But one of the questions, Ron, that I have learned to always ask, I want to probe a little bit deeper and understand, are you walking the walk over here? What are some of the impact-led startups that you have invested in yourself?
Yeah, there are many. There are many that I've included in the book, as well as some that are maybe a bit newer. But there's a big range, and I love to share the stories, and we don't have enough time to cover all of them. But a couple examples that I can give is a fantastic education technology company that uses AI called All Here, founded by a former Boston inner city public school teacher who saw the problem of student absenteeism and created a messaging tool between schools and families that allow them to communicate and solve issues like, why isn't your child in school? Maybe there's something we can do about it. And this company is just growing by leaps and bounds, and it is a success as a software solution by any measure, regardless of the fact that it has a huge double bottom line as well. One example, and another that I love, is a company in the immigration space called Boundless, based in Seattle, that is helping people solve the problem of the complication and struggle and cost of filing to become a U.S. immigrant. We put up all sorts of barriers, and yet we try to say, welcome to our country, but really it's going to cost you thousands of dollars and be a massive headache of paperwork. This company uses technology as well as real people to make the process of becoming a U.S. immigrant that much easier, with incredible rates of success, like 99.9% success rates. And so those are the kinds of companies that I love, that are solving real problems for real people. But I've invested across the world. I've invested in companies in Africa that are solving problems on a much more massive scale of people who don't have access to capital and credit. But what do you do if you need a loan to pay a medical bill? So there are companies solving all kinds of problems, and I'm excited to be able to invest in companies like that.
That's incredible. So, Ron, we're coming to a close in our conversation. And I just want to zoom out for a moment. As mentioned in the intro, the world's facing some pretty massive issues. And I know you are a strong believer that many of them can indeed be solved by entrepreneurs, many of which might be tuning into the program today. So, what are some of the crystal ball things that you're looking at some of the societal problems that can be solved by entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of change happening right now. I mean, AI is impacting almost every new venture that I see today. It has an AI component to it, or it should, and that's very important because AI used in the right way can really push our society forward. It's going to help us uncover new drugs. It's going to help us, get more insights into human behavior and get them solutions faster that they need. But I would say, if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to raise capital to scale a venture, just keep talking to people because conversations lead to more conversations. I get really excited by entrepreneurs that are mission driven, that have an experience that have led them to solve a particular problem. And there's so many problems to be solved in the world. Don't worry about sharing your ideas that someone else might steal them, because it's all about execution. There are great ideas all over the place, but really, being able to execute is what matters. And hopefully investors can be your partners in that journey. So please just go out and start something.
Yeah. Well, Ron, I want to make sure our listeners can find the book and get in touch with you. How can they do that?
Absolutely. So I have a website, which is higherpurposevc.com. So for Higher Purpose Venture Capital, books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. And for my firm, Alumni Ventures, av.vc, very simple. You can learn more about us. We work with individual accredited investors who are looking to add venture capital to their portfolios.
Fantastic. Well, that's a wrap for us here on the show, all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Get on my website, syklein.com. We'll link, of course, to this fantastic read and to all of our amazing guests that we've had on today, syklein.com. To success, let's get down to business. We'll talk to you next week.